Thanks for having me. Thanks for taking the time. So we just like to ask, do people here, are people here have any familiarity with B-Lab? You just show of hands. Okay, that's good. So it's good that you don't, but there's an even lack of knowledge. So I'll start from the beginning, and I'll tell you a little bit about B-Lab, which is the organization I work for, as well as myself and how I got involved. First, actually, I'll tell you like my story because I'm very new to B-Lab. I practiced corporate law in Delaware for 26 years in private practice. Did a lot of public company work, but also a lot of startup work. So I worked, did a lot of M&A transactions, a lot of capital raising, a lot of hostile takeover fights, like corporate governance. Often the people who came to us were not companies or entrepreneurs themselves, but law firms, like a law firm in Austin or Silicon Valley or New York that needed some Delaware expertise because they were encountering kind of a difficult situation. So we were really specialists in corporate law. In like maybe 2011, when I was on a committee that sort of looked at, Delaware is sort of the home of corporate law, so we're very careful about the statute. And we have a bar committee, and the bar committee oversees the statutes, recommends changes really almost every year to the legislature to keep up. We were approached by this outfit called B-Lab, and B-Lab said, we think corporations could be more of a force for good in the world, not just these engines of profit, but they can be engines of good. And we think the way to do that is to amend corporate law to provide that corporations can be benefit corporations. And they'd actually got a lawyer on a pro bono basis to draft sort of a model that any state could add to its corporate statute that would say, and this is the key, under traditional, I'll talk about this in the slides, but under traditional corporate law, your duties run only to your stockholders. And they said, there's a better model. The duties of the board and the company and its purpose should run to all of the stakeholders, everybody who's affected. And that was part of what they did. B-Lab has a much larger vision. We certify companies as being good for the world, and there's sort of a rigorous performance standard that you meet. And if you can meet that rigorous performance standard, that looks at your how you treat your employees, it looks at your supply chain, it looks at your environmental footprint, it looks at how you treat the community, whether you have charitable giving or give your employees time to do charitable work, all those sorts of things. And then it comes up with a score, and if you get a high enough score, you can be certified by us as a B corporation. But in addition to meeting the performance standard, you need to change your legal structure. And if you're a corporation, what you need to do is become a benefit corporation, because it was important to the founders of B-Lab, not merely that you have this good social performance, but that the idea of doing that is really knitted into your DNA, so that going forward, you're going to maintain that. And I'd also say, just from the entrepreneur's perspective, if that's important to you, if mission is important to you, it's a way to lock it in, so that if you have an exit, an M&A exit, an IPO exit, you can lock that in down the road, even if you're no longer involved with the company. So anyway, B-Lab came to us and said, here's our idea. 10 states have done this. You ought to do it in Delaware. And of course, Delaware for them is the big target because so many people use Delaware, especially public companies. And our reaction was, well, that's cute, but corporations are about making money. We've been doing this a long time, very successful. Thanks, but no thanks. They were persistent, and we got some pressure from our own governor and Secretary of State to say, this movement might have some legs, and look harder. We're the leading jurisdiction, and we did that. And I sort of took the lead in that. And I will say that I spent some time going back and looking at articles and academic research and thinking about things, and I became convinced that there was a better way, and we certainly, as the leading corporate state, ought to give people an opportunity to operate their businesses in this manner and still be, the key is that even though you've got stakeholder model in mind, you're a for-profit entity. You're still a company that takes investors' money and tries to give them a good return. So I became convinced, and I actually became sort of the lead drafter in Delaware, and we got the statute passed. And I became so interested in the movement and got to be friends with the founders that I gave up my law practice, and I am now the head of legal policy at B-Lab. So that's kind of how I got here. So just sort of a little bit more about what B-Lab does. I talked about the certification, and we have 1,600 companies at this point that have passed the certification. Some of them you've heard of: Patagonia, King Arthur Flour, Kickstarter, Alt School, Cabot Cheese, Laureate Education. So we have a good set of companies that have certified. About half of those are US based, half international. We have affiliates, 6 affiliates around the globe. But that's sort of a headline that people know about for us. But although we have 1,600 companies that are certified, we have about 40,000 companies that use our metrics. We have a tool online. It's a free tool. If you're interested in seeing how it works for your business, you can go to bcorporation.net. It's called the B Impact Assessment, and it's a long process to go through. It would take hours. But there's also something on that's the BIA. There's also something on there called the QIA, which is the Quick Impact Assessment. And it's a tool that you can use, and it's completely free, and you can use it to benchmark your performance to see whether you're, how you stand up in sort of stakeholder responsibility. But it's also, importantly, an improvement tool. So as you go through it, you can mark yourself for here's a place I'd like to improve. There's educational tools, so you can say here's how you learn. It's a question about how do you compensate full-time employees, health benefits or something. There's tools to sort of take you through that and talk about impact and how you can have impact as a business. So that's a big part of what we do, is encouraging people to use that program. Another big part of what we do is called mission alignment, and that's what I'm part of. So although we like companies to certify, we like them to use our tool, we also know that doesn't work for everyone. And there are other tools, by the way, you can measure yourself by. There's something called, I won't go into it. There's a lot of standards you can use, and they're on our website. So you might just not be interested in our measurement tools, but we believe strongly in the legal piece, that our system is kind of messed up, and that's what I'll talk about a little bit. And that it would benefit the world to have more corporations operating on a stakeholder model. We, B-Lab, are a nonprofit, and our mission is to make the world a better place through business being a force for good. And so we have an initiative where we encourage people to use the benefit corporation model. We help them. We talk to their directors, we talk to their lawyers, we talk to their investors to try to get them comfortable. Part of that initiative is also working with larger companies. We have an initiative right now that we call the Multinational Public Markets Advisory Council, where we're working with a lot of big multinational companies like Unilever and Danone to try to make this whole system work for the larger companies. Right now, most of the companies in our ecosystem are small and medium-sized enterprises, but we want to move up.
When you talk about this system for companies, multinationals, are you talking about the mission alignment versus, you're not actually trying to persuade? I know Unilever has the Ben & Jerry's, that they're not considering going to B Corp for.
Paul Pullman at Unilever has said that he would like Unilever to be a certified B Corporation. So we actually have 2 working groups in the advisory council. One dealing with the legal issue, and the second dealing with the performance certification. I'll show you these slides. We recently certified a company called Laureate Education. They're a $4.5 billion revenue, KKR-backed, for-profit education company, which recently filed an S1. But it was a huge lift for us as an organization to certify a company of that size. We need to go to a model like with like the accounting standards where we have third parties doing the certification. But it is very much our goal to bring larger companies into the fold. And you know, both Danone and Unilever are big backers and are very interested in
And to
doing this.
clarify, to be certified as B Corp, do you reorganize as a B Corp?
So yeah, I should, the terminology is terrible because of the frequent use of the letter B. But when you get certified by us and get to put that circle with the B on your products, that means you're a certified B corporation and you've met our performance standard, and you have to recertify every 2 years under the B impact assessment. And you've also made the legal change. So it's both performance and the legal change, and then you sign our Declaration of Independence, then you pay our fee, and you're a certified B corporation. Benefit corporation is just a legal status. Anybody can do it, and that's what I'm primarily here to talk about today. Although, you know, the resources of B Lab are available for all these other things too, and may be of interest. So let me with that intro, let me talk a little bit about benefit corporations, and feel free to sort of interrupt me all through, because I may gloss over the important stuff and spend time talking about stuff you don't care about, which wouldn't be good. So here's, like, you know, basically the thing you have to understand is the current law, and this is particularly true in the Anglo-American law system, less true maybe for companies in the civil law system in Europe, and then it's kind of a mishmash in Latin America. But definitely in the US, the current law is that the ultimate goal of directors is to maximize value. You know, you can certainly do well by doing good, and lots of companies do that, and they treat their employees well and they're good to their communities, but always that has to be tied to making a profit, and if ever the two conflict, the law is that you're supposed to go with the profit, not with the purpose. And that comes up most clearly, the rubber really hits the road in exit transactions. Like, lawyers call this the Revlon doctrine, that you have to, because it was a case where Revlon tried to sell itself to less than the highest bidder because the highest bidder was going to destroy the value of the company's bonds. And they went into court and they argued that this is why we're doing this, it's a perfectly reasonable business reason, and the court said, no, you owe fiduciary duties to your stockholders, not your bondholders, and force them to sell to the highest company, or highest bidder. But that also means that, and this is actually the founding story of B Lab, is that the founders had started a company called And One. It was an athletic apparel company, and they had grown it to a $250 million business. But in the apparel business, the big ethical challenge is your supply chain, and they were very, very careful about that. Also treated their workers well, but they had outside investors, and when it came time to sell the company, they had to sell to the highest bidder. And, you know, they saw all the ethical practices they put in, you know, taken down literally within weeks. And so that's a place where this issue really hits the road. But also, even in your operating business, where you have a strategy that requires sort of an authentic commitment to other stakeholders, it's very difficult to convince the other side that your commitment is authentic when they know you're organized as a for-profit company. And I'll have an example later that where it kind of illustrates that. And the thing to think about is, this doesn't just take away value from stockholders, because that might be one thing you'd be concerned about. If I do this, am I going to have trouble raising capital? It really doesn't. And we like to say it really just, if you are a mission-based company, or even just a company who part of your business plan is operating in a very ethical way that takes into account all your stockholders, it really adds to your toolkit. You've got a broader purpose that you can take out to your stockholders. The business judgment rule, that's a legal doctrine that says the board really has broad discretion to consider things, and courts aren't going to get mess with business decisions. It just broadens the business judgment rule because it gives you more ability to think about stakeholders. It also gives you liability protection. If someone were to bring a lawsuit and say, well, your job is to maximize value for stockholders, even though most of the investors were committed toward a stakeholder-based model, one investor could challenge that. And this protects directors from liability in that situation. And of course, the last bullet point is it gives you more flexibility when you're selling the company. You can actually care about what's going to happen to your employees and your customers. So this is getting it down into the weeds a little bit, so I won't spend too much time on it. But basically, what the Delaware statute says is once you become a benefit corporation, you're still a for-profit company, you're still a C Corp, none of that changes. Most of the law doesn't change, but when the board makes decisions, they balance the interests of stakeholders, the specific purpose you've chosen, and the interests of your stakeholders, broadly. So that what that means when you're in the boardroom is you're considering the broader impact of what you do on everybody that you touch. And there's also importantly, you do, because the founders were worried about greenwashing, there's very specific transparency provisions in the statute. So for example, in Delaware, every 2 years, you have to report to your stockholders on what your objectives are with respect to stakeholders, what the standards are to make sure you're meeting those objectives, and some hard numbers or hard facts, sort of seeing whether assessing whether you're meeting those standards, and finally, sort of an overall assessment of how you're doing. Question we get a lot of when we say this is, am I gonna get sued? Again, this is like kind of into the legal weeds, and I will just tell you that we drafted the statute very carefully to make sure that this didn't turn into like a litigation fest. More thinking about public companies, because in the public arena, there's kind of a group of plaintiffs, bar, lawyers who like to find cottage industries lawsuits, and we want this to be successful in the public markets. So we built in these provisions. Importantly, this is a right that stockholders have. So the idea is that people who are investing in the company are buying into a vision of stakeholder interests, but it doesn't give the stakeholders themselves the right to sue the directors. It would only be a stockholder who could come in and say, we wanted a stakeholder model, not a stockholder model. But you're not going to be battling lawsuits from the Sierra Club and others like that, interest groups.
What is the 2%, 2 million? Would you explain that?
So the idea there is, and again, this is that last bullet point, focusing on the public companies where there's an active plaintiffs bar. We didn't want a stockholder with 100 shares of a public company to be able to bring a lawsuit. We wanted only stockholders who had skin in the game. So if you're a privately held company, a stockholder would have to have 2% of the shares in order to bring a challenge.
Wow.
And if you're a public company, they would have to have at least $2 million worth of stock. So this is a few slides now that just show you where we are in the movement. 2010 was actually the first year that benefit corporation was adopted anywhere. That was in Maryland. 2011 was Delaware, and we're now up to 32 states, and we're at 3,000 benefit corporations. And one thing I want to be clear about is those are corporations. There are other, we also encourage companies that are formed as LLCs to do something similar. And that, it's easier as an LLC because the law is much more flexible. So we didn't have to pass a special statute. We just had to say, if you want to be a certified B corporation and you're an LLC and we want you to have stakeholder values, you need to include that in your operating agreement. So it does not require a legal change. And so we can't, because of that, we can't really keep count of what people's operating agreements look like. These numbers we can get, these are hard numbers we can get from the Secretary of State. So this is corporations only. And I'll just mention the fact that, I talked earlier about the distinction between B corporations that we certify as an organization and benefit corporations, the legal form. And the overlap is actually fairly small right now. Of those 3,000 benefit corporations, I'd say only maybe slightly more than 200 are certified by B-Lab. The other 2,800 have just chosen to operate in this new form. And then, so if you think about the other side of that, of the 1,600 companies we certify, only 200 are actually benefit corporations, because many of them are LLCs, or they're in jurisdictions where you either cannot be a benefit corporation because the statute hasn't been adopted, or you don't need to be, because outside the US, there's a lot of jurisdictions where it's not required to be a benefit corporation. So these are some leading companies that have in fact adopted benefit corporation statute. Kickstarter is a company we certify. They have lots of VC and sophisticated investors, including Union Square Ventures. Alt School, I think I have another slide on this, but they're venture backed and they've raised over $100 million in capital. Some companies like Plum is actually a wholly owned subsidiary of Campbell's. If you have small children, you might know them. They're a leading baby food manufacturer. This American Life is kind of fun, just to have them in the fold. Patagonia, Cotopaxi is another case study I have. So this slide, this is just to show, again, I think some people hear this and they're like, well, that sounds great for my company, but am I going to be able to go out to investors and raise funds? And we have seen literally dozens of VC rounds done with benefit corporation. Alt School is backed by Founders Fund and Andreessen Horowitz, two obviously leading names. They're a for-profit, actually I have a quote I'm going to read. They're a for-profit education company that's raised over $100 million. And, you know, Founders Fund, which is, you know, a pretty aggressive, wanting to make profit for their LPs kind of organization. Here's what Brian Singerman, the partner who leads their investment, said about this. We seek out exceptional mission-driven companies creating long-term value, both financially and for humanity. Alt School is a perfect example of a company that's building a strong business while driving positive change. Their benefit corporation legal status allows the team to think beyond short-term profits and focus on fundamentally improving the education system for many decades to come. And I was on a panel where he said that, and what he talked about was the fact that, and also Max Ventilla, the founder, by being a benefit corporation, they were actually, you know, they need to engage with local school systems, because a lot of their business model is going to be running schools or parts of schools or otherwise engaging with public school system. They need to be able to sort of look those people in the eye and say, we're in it for the kids. We're not just in it for the money, because if we're just in it for the money, at some point, this isn't going to work out for you. And so they feel that being a benefit corporation is a huge value to their business plan. I think they may be certified now, but they're somebody who just wanted to do the legal for the benefit of the legal. Cotopaxi is a very cool gear firm. They've also done a couple rounds with some well-known venture funds. Another one I'll mention is a company called Farmigo. They're Brooklyn-based. They kind of do farm. They help you do a farm share. So what they'll do is they'll find a community where they want to work in, like New York and a couple other metropolitan areas, and they will go find local farms, and they will allow you from your apartment to set up a farm share, and they've got the software, and they're sort of backed by Benchmark and some other well-known venture capitalists. But they're sort of perfect for this because their goals are, you know, one, the local food movement, and two, building community, because it's a great, you know, doing a farm share yourself is a great way to build community. 20 people come to your house every week and sort of pick up the box. By the way, what they also have is the software that allows you to pick what you're getting, so you don't get like a box of rutabagas and not know what to do with it. So they're one of my they're one of my favorites, and they have a very cool entrepreneur who's behind that company. So all of which is to say, we have found that this is not a barrier to scaling through venture funding. Then I want to turn to the next question people have was, does this work in the public markets? You know, what are the institutional investors going to do with this? I will say that personally, I've been with B-Lab less than a year. A big part of what I started doing right when I came on was to talk to those public institutional investors because we've been very successful, but to date, it's been small and medium-sized enterprises. We're just kind of like touching the public markets, and I talked about the advisory council. We want to make sure that, you know, we don't get ahead of ourselves and have people starting to sort of think about IPOs from our pipeline, and then have the public institutional investors reject the concept. So I spent a lot of time over the last year just visiting, you know, T. Rowe Price and Fidelity and Vanguard and BlackRock and CalPERS and CalSTRS and a lot of big public market investors. And what we find from them is largely what we find from the VC investors, which is, well, we don't invest in corporate governance models. We invest in people and business plans, and, you know, if we like the people in the business plan and they tell us this is the right corporate governance model, we're going to go along with it. And we have some evidence of this. Natura is, they're not a US company, they're a Brazilian company, you know, traded on the Brazilian Stock Exchange, but they're big enough, they're like a $4 or $5 billion market cap company, that they have, you know, sort of global investors. They actually, as a public company, went to their stockholders and asked for a vote to amend their charter, not to become a benefit corp, because Brazil doesn't have benefit corp, but to adopt charter provisions that mirror the benefit corp stakeholder idea, and they had no problem getting that passed. And in fact, ISS, which is a proxy advisor that a lot of institutional investors subscribe to, recommend, and they're very tough, a very stockholder-based organization, they recommended for. This is one we're really excited about. I mentioned Lord Education has now filed an S1. They've got leading law firms, leading bulge bracket bankers, and, you know, they're ready to go public once the market opens. As somebody said to me yesterday, what is an IPO? But we're hoping that'll change soon, and that's very exciting for us. There's also a couple of companies that have gone public as certified B corporations. A well-known example is Etsy, the online seller. They're not a benefit. I don't have them on a prior slide because they're not a benefit corp yet. You have a grace period in which to make the change. They wanted to go public as a Delaware corporation, and unfortunately, when they went public, the Delaware statute had some problems. Our first draft was the first draft, and we made some fixes to it, and now they're in a position, I think, where they could make the change. Of course, Etsy, unfortunately, is having other problems, so they're not really that comfortable going to their stockholders this year. Hopefully, they'll do it next year. And the second company, Rally Software, went public as a certified B. They've since been acquired. But the idea is we're starting to see that in the public markets. This is the transparency. I talked about that before, just something people should be aware of, that they have that obligation once they go public, or sorry, once they convert to a benefit corp. This is a slide that I bring to the investors to show them that they don't have to be scared of this. Basically, the idea is to show shareholders that they have all the protections that they have under traditional corporate law. They get to elect the directors, they get votes on important transactions, they have all the right to look at documents, the same director duties apply, and in fact they have more protections because of the disclosure requirements and a high vote to change your mission. And again, this is to get investors comfortable that there's not going to be a runaway board that turns the for-profit company they've invested in into a charity. So really just to sort of sum things up, a traditional corporation must be managed only to produce value for stockholders. You can't commit to other interests in order to create sustainable long-term value. So even if you thought that was the best way to go. Benefit corporations, they're for-profit, but they're designed in a way to create long-term value through a broad commitment to sustainable growth with your stakeholders. I think people say, well, I don't quite get how that works. Isn't it, if you could make more money for stockholders that way, why do you need a change in the law? You know, because that's a better model, and it's the commitment. The idea is the commitment. And one thing I gotta say to you was, look, the idea here, under traditional corporate law, the corporation makes as much money as it can for stockholders. And that can be through all sorts of shenanigans that involve what economists call negative externalities, like pollution, like, increasing inequality, where those things in the long run are gonna hurt everybody. But you just look at your bottom line and your investor's bottom line, and there's more for them. If you sort of use the benefit corporation technique where you're creating value, then you're getting rid of the negative externalities, and what you're doing is you're saying, we're actually gonna create real, durable, long-term value, so the pie's bigger. So if you just do the math, there's actually more for everybody in a benefit corporation universe. So it's not surprising that that's a way to do better. It just, at first might seem a little paradoxical. And finally, this last slide is just sort of another way of articulating those advantages, because people will say, well, I already do this. I am a good company. I care about my employees, and I'm not a benefit corporation. And first bullet point acknowledges that. And the second bullet point just makes the point that performance, even though you're doing well, and doing good as well as doing well, that doing good is always contingent on the narrow conception of what your director's fiduciary duties are. And becoming a benefit corporation allows you to fully integrate those principles into your performance. And that's what creates the durable wealth. The last bullet point isn't so much about company by company or investor by investor. This is more sort of my vision of the world. And the idea would really be, if you think about the LPs, who are the ultimate investors in the VC funds that you may be looking for funding from, those are big institutions that are invested across the market. And it's really a losing game for them to invest in companies that create value by dumping externalities on the rest of the market, because they own the rest of the market. Think about 2008, investing in Merrill Lynch, chasing after mortgage-backed securities so that they could make money. And what ended up happening was the whole system collapsed. It hurt everybody, and if you were a universal investor invested across the market, it killed you. The ultimate vision is that this is a way for in big investors, institutional investors who are invested across the market, to actually improve their entire performance, and not only improve their financial performance and the bank accounts of their beneficiaries, but also their beneficiaries have other capital. They have human capital, their lives, human capital, the capital of the planet we live on, all those sorts of things. And this should benefit all of that. So that is the end of my presentation. Just want to tell you, I've got copies of the slides up there. Also sort of a one-pager that just sort of tries to encapsulate this. My card, and I'll just tell you, what I do is help people become benefit corporations. That's my job. So if you have more questions, we have time to talk about them now, but also later. If people are interested in this, we are truly here to help. We have all kinds of forms online. A couple of there's our website, and then there's a special website for benefit corporations. So that's all there for free to help. That, I will stop talking and maybe take some questions.
Has Texas adopted benefit corporation?
Texas adopted something called, and I have to say that I went through this too. I went through the same thing where we said, some people say, well, the problem is fiduciary duties, and corporate law thrives on flexibility. So what we should just do is say, you don't have to have stockholder primacy, you can have whatever you want, including picking just one benefit. BLAB didn't like that, because BLAB really wanted to encourage people to be good corporate citizens. But what a few states have done is to adopt a social purpose model, where you can say, okay, we're not going to have stockholder primacy, what we're going to do is have worker primacy. But that means we're going to do good things for our workers and our stockholders, but the environment be damned. And that's what Texas has. So if you want to be a certified B corporation, you can actually adopt the social purpose in Texas as a Texas corporation, but then make your social purpose broad to be all stakeholders. So Texas is halfway, which is better than some states, which are no way.
The cases you gave about, I think it was Revlon and I forget the other company, where they chose the second highest bidder and were punished by existing laws for doing so. Does the same exist with a benefit corporation in terms of if we choose to go to the highest bidder at the expense of our declared benefits, is there legal recourse against those types of decisions?
So the way the statute works is you need a 2/3, if you're sort of abandoning your benefit in an exit transaction, you'll need to get a high vote. So the first protection against that is that you hope that you can't get a super majority of your investors to just leave everything behind. But let's say you could, and the company just said, you know, we're selling to sort of the worst of the worst because it's the best deal. It's an open question, like how a court would treat that. There's a law review article that the current Chief Justice of the Delaware Supreme Court wrote, where he suggested, you know, that he would enjoin that transaction if you pick the worst of the worst for a small bump in price. But, you know, I think the courts will be very hesitant to get involved in that. And a lot of this is about, as much as it is about winning court cases, is about changing attitude and getting buy-in. I'll just give you an example. I was on a panel and it was another Brooklyn-based entrepreneur. She's got a sustainable, it's called Susty Party. You can buy like party materials that are, they're disposable, but they're supposed to be better for the environment than most disposable materials. And anyway, the question, she got the question from the audience of, had she had any problem with investors, because she was in her like C round. And she said no, and then we kind of moved on. And then she said, I just want to say something, go back to the question and say, if I had had a problem, that would have told me that that's not the investor I wanted. So part of this is sort of getting people up, making sure that the people involved with your company, whether it's, you know, supply chain or employees or investors, sort of buy into your vision. So that's, as much as getting the right outcome in a legal case, I think it's getting people's story straight at the beginning of the process.
I've read a couple articles in the last year on for-profit, nonprofit hybrids, and it seems to be a model that's gaining popularity. And as best I can understand, the company manages to have separate wings, one that can raise money in a more traditional fashion and that one can raise through nonprofit channels. I'm interested to learn more about that. I do have a social benefit company. We're trying to run it as a for-profit. What do you know about that model, and who might you recommend I could talk to develop that further?
So I'll say a few things about that. So some people call what we are a hybrid. And I think you're going along with this. We don't really like that terminology. We like to say, no, this is a benefit corporation, is a for-profit company with a different model. And the hybrid is really a way of combining nonprofit and, you know, right, a 501c3 and the benefits of a 501c3 with a profit-based company so that you can raise capital and scale. And I'll just give you an example, which is B-Lab itself. So B-Lab is a nonprofit, and before I was there, but when the founders organized, they thought a lot about, you know, this issue, and they, in their heart of hearts, they would have liked to be a for-profit company because they want to exemplify, you know, the value that they're putting out there. But they just decided as a standard-setting organization, it wasn't viable. And so that means we're constantly out there, although we have revenue, we're constantly out there doing philanthropic fundraising, which isn't fun, and we can't do that kind of scaling. However, we just closed a $2 million round of a media company, which we've organized as an LLC, B corporation with stakeholder values, and we're going to have a for-profit media arm. And that is the hybrid model where, you know, we contributed our IP to that organization, and we wanted to raise capital, we wanted to scale, and we want to actually, you know, ultimately fund ourselves out of those profits. But we want that for-profit organization run with something that approximates our values. So we have a hybrid model, and we're using a benefit corporation or a benefit LLC to make that work for us. And I mean, I'm happy to give you more detail on that. And you know, there's lots of nonprofit. Well, people are. This is a model that's out there that people are beginning to use.
Thank you.
We had law firm that helped us set that up. And it's interesting. We also, I'll just tell you, we set up the structure of the LLC. Like, we're not looking for a home run exit. We want to have this media arm out there forever. So the return model is a dividend-based model, which is the same thing Kickstarter is now doing. And Union Square Ventures has said they're very happy with that. They don't have to all be home runs. That's not the only way to make money for your LPs.
What's the media company gonna do?
So we're gonna have a print magazine, and then web presence and events. But our headline's gonna be a print magazine.
Are you trying to get buyers of products to wanna
Fine.
have a preference for B Corp companies? Is that what you're thinking?
So there's definitely in the B Corp community, there's definitely the idea of attracting consumers through through our IP, and we've been successful with that. When you talk to the 1,600 certified companies, they'd say that's not their primary. The thing they get out of more than anything is employee engagement, because people like to work for a company where their jobs have meaning, beyond the paycheck. But definitely using the IP as a way to brand yourself with consumers, like a fair trade mark or organic mark, is definitely part of the business model. And then we try to build community, like those magazines. I think a big channel for those is going to be employees of our 1,600 certified companies.
As the certification for B Lab, do you guys have do you kind of have to be the broad spectrum of you're environmentally friendly, you're worker friendly? Is it broad spectrum, or do you have specific, like this company is a little bit more environmentally aware, sustainable?
So no company's perfect. We also say no standard's perfect. And we're on V5, and we're already planning for V6 because we just keep getting better. We have invested close to $10 million over the years in that standard. And like I say, it's free. You can go use it. So it is a very nice resource to go use. And I do recommend just getting on there and doing the QIA. It'll take you 25 minutes, and it's interesting. But to answer your question, in order to get certified based on performance, you need to get 80 points out of a 200-point scale.
Okay.
So, you could be really great on the environment and not so good on your employees, and you can get there. And as I said, there's lots of tools for improvement on there too, because that's part of what we do. Etsy, like the story on them is, well, one thing I'll say is that like a lot of companies who are very proud of their practices, they go on and they get 60 points and they're very upset and they're mad at us. And it's hard, but we help companies work with it. Etsy, I think the story is they qualified, if you need 80 points, they had 80.5. But they used it sort of as a tool in-house, and they do like in-house hackathons, and they're like up to 120 points or something. And also say, it's much easier to get to the 80 points if you have an impact, what we call an impact business model. So if you have a business that involves recycling or serving underserved populations, then you can get points for the impact that your business is directed at. If you're just a company that is in a very traditional business, it's hard because you have to get all your points based on your practices and not on your impact.
I think you might have covered this. but a Texas-based LLC is eligible to apply for B Corporation status. What is the cost of a company to go through the certification process?
So I don't know the levels, it starts at $500 for companies that don't have high revenues. So probably $500. We also have something for companies that do not have a year of operations. We have something called pending B, and there you don't have to go through the process. You just have to make your legal change, make a commitment to try to get certified once you've had a year of operations. And if you do that, and that's $500, and if you do that, you can use our mark for pending B, and you can also have access to all, like some of our proprietary stuff. Like we have a really good social media concept called Beehive, where there's all sorts of communities. And it's like if you want to get like a whistleblower policy, it's probably a lot of stuff you can get by being in this community too, but it's that sort of thing. You can just go on and you can find other people who have a related impact-based model and be in that group or be, whatever. There's lots of stuff on there.
Let's see, what resources might you recommend for someone like me who's looking to learn more about the hybrid model in particular? And do those need to be state-based resources, or who do you think is most knowledgeable about that?
So, if I use structure as a nonprofit right now.
No.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you're going to use a hybrid, you're going to need help from a lawyer to get the 501c3 status, and that's who I would talk to, whoever was going to do that work. There's a law firm in Boulder called Blue Dot Law Firm, and they are, I don't know how far along they are, but they are putting together a resource of forms for impact-based transactions and deals and these sorts of things. So like structures like the one I talked about that we have. So there may be some free resources there.
How do you spell it?
It's Blue Dot, like Blue Dot.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
For states that have, for states that have L3Cs on the books, how would you recommend people choose between that and a benefit corp LLC?
So, the L3C, I think, is an idea, and I'm not an expert in this. It was sort of an idea to meet this very particular tax issue. I'm not sure it was successful doing that, trying to be available for PRIs, and I'm just not sure it really worked out. I mean, unless you feel that you're getting that very particular benefit of encouraging someone to invest in you as a PRI, I don't think the L3C is that good of a model. It limits your it'd be much better to be an LLC that had stakeholder values because it's not limiting. It's not limiting in your investment. You're not limiting the class of investors. I also think there was like a notice from the IRS within the last 6 months making it pretty clear that foundations can invest and endowments can invest for social reasons outside the PRI process, which should again make it less necessary.
I learned about B corporations through ELO, the social network. Do you have any knowledge about their social or benefit scopes?
What's it called?
ELO, you have the logo.
Oh, yeah. I don't know much about it. I mean, I know that they're a benefit corp, and I think they're certified, but I'm not a user.
Yeah.
Have you seen a good shift in the VCs and wanting to be more involved in
So,
these benefit corps?
I think again, I started not that long ago, and I started on the defense. I was afraid that as there was more uptake among the business and entrepreneurial community, there'd be resistance from investors. the sense I got from the tour I did, last summer and fall was, it just wasn't, for most VCs, it was not a big deal. It was sort of, I don't think if that's important, then fine. Don't go into your pitch saying, for benefit corp, number one thing, just like, if that's what you need, that's fine. A few have some enthusiasm. I met somebody here this morning who was like, oh yeah, I have a company, I'm gonna go talk to them about doing this. So I'm hoping that, it's the kind of thing where I think it's most important to the entrepreneurs and the founders. It's part of their vision, it's what they wanna do. As that takes hold, investors will go, oh, I get it. And then the more people that do it, the more important it becomes from just a competitive factor in the competition for talent and customers, to start thinking this way. So I think we're at the very beginning.
Is there a mechanism in place to promote and market members of the certified community? I would imagine part of the value might be if the community supports its own, that membership might have value in that sense.
Yeah, so on the certified B Corp, for sure, there's, I'm not the best person to talk about it, just because I'm on the legal side, but every year we do a champions retreat, so we had 400 companies together this year for 3 days. And, there's the Beehive that I mentioned. We have a services group that tries to, we do what we call build events, where in a geographic locale, we'll get everybody together and have some theme about it. Often it's about some way to improve your impact. So yeah, we have the discounts too and stuff like that. That's not, I don't think that's really our biggest thing, but we do have members that offer discounts to other B corporations.
So not an official PR arm that is sort of marketing B Corps to the general public?
I don't think we have a campaign that's really to the general public right now. I mean, that's part of the idea of our media arm. That will do that. I mean, that's going to have our IP right on front, and our goal would be to have that magazine next to ink at the airport and stuff like that. Okay, well, like I said, there's a little bit of propaganda up here, and I don't ever hesitate to use this as a resource or to tell your colleagues or people you know. I will say, one personal note I'll say is that our focus has been very much on Silicon Valley and the institutional investor community, and I'm very excited this year. One of our specific things is geographic and to focus on Austin, because I think the vibe, ethos down here is perfect for this. Maybe better from some other locales that are known for venture capital as well. So I'm excited to sort of get to know the whole community.
So do you think that you're following the trend in our culture? Do you think that you're starting a trend in our culture?
So there's definitely a movement toward impact investing, and you can see it, from the top. People do these sustainability reports now. Big companies do sustainability reports. There's a lot of energy around. There's something called, Richard Branson has started something, and there's that social capital. So there's a lot going on. I think we would, as an organization, complain that a lot of that is talk and not much action. And we get that as feedback too. Hey, you guys are actually doing something. You are actually pushing companies with your, the impact assessment to actually get better. You've actually changed the law in 32 states and Italy to change the way people think about their corporate governance. So I think there's definitely a trend out there, but I hope that we're influencing it to sort of be real. Don't sit here just because I'm sitting up. I need to go. I know it's 2 o'clock, so.
Is the website with those resources on
On that
some
card.
of your propaganda?
on the card. And one of the websites is B-Lab, that's the bcorporation.net, the other is Benefit Corporation, is specifically about legal.
Do you think Texas, I mean, are they getting any closer to adopting this, or
I
do we
think,
wait, or do we just go for the B Lab and forget about that?
just incorporate Delaware. Our statute's better. Like,
Yeah.
this is like, I'll say this unofficial, off the record, I'm not being filmed, but the statute we drafted in Delaware is better than the statute that B-Lab drafted. It's the most- So since Delaware, a couple states have followed us, and the rest of the states have followed the B-Lab model. I like the one I drafted.
All right.
Do you know when Texas adopted the form that it did?
No, I'm not sure, a couple years ago maybe.
Who would have driven that?
So, well, I was not in the, we had again, most of this before I got there, our policy group. And in general, I don't know the Texas experience, but in general, it was pretty bipartisan. Like, we did not have, like, the resistance we always got was from the bar, not political. Now, there's a couple of states that are exceptions to that, like North Carolina. There's a very strong Republican resistance, like a sense that, you know, we want to encourage unionization or something. But for the most part, it appeals to both sides of the aisle because it's, you know, I will admit that most of the things that we actually talk about doing are more of a Democratic focus, but it's all done through business, so it's got a very Republican, even libertarian sort of appeal as well. It just frees up what capital can do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
JC, sorry to walk in late. I don't know. So, hold on. Oh, no, I was probably getting a little bit of time, so. Go for it.
I'm not sure what Travis House from, but we helped set up the first station.
Oh.
I just moved here, and with thumbs up right now.
Oh, that's great.
So, they were interested in incorporating into the course, but I'm not sure where that stands presently. Fingerprinting, yeah, the like big to do about whether or not we were drivers.
What's gonna happen?
That depends on the day of the election, so thumbs up's going ahead regardless, just as a.
I don't know how tricky it is, to be honest, like, I think, because I'm just thinking about our experience.
Time to run a background check before
And
you do the date next to
we were formed as a 501c3
like a single sign on.
6 or 7 years ago,
Oh,
and
that's a really good idea.
I don't think there was anything special we had to do in order
I think it's a good
to,
idea. Why wouldn't you
I
want
mean,
to?
basically, you're giving up the idea of
Right, right, well, there's so
paying
much,
taxes
like,
on
service on demand
on those
stuff going
properties.
on right now.
But, you know, you already have that issue as a 501c3 if you've got related business
Sharing
income.
your room house
So,
as like an Airbnb
So really, it's just
guest,
about
I
everything on
about
top
you,
of
so.
the traditional.
Well, that's a really
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
and I would think
It's been a bit of a
if there's
political
somebody
football,
who
which is the-
holds them out as like sort
Yeah.
of knowing
Yeah, it was,
nonprofit tax law.
sort of kind of co-founded by the mayor, so.
So there's really nothing special you do when you set up a process to make sure you.
I don't think so, I mean, I would ask, but.
I must get hard at it, I'm locked into this, you know.
Honestly, I wanna see this.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that.
Like, I mean, this is all part of my thought
Website
process.
or the proctologist's website.
To do.
I think it is.
address the huge issues we have, whether it's environmental or inequality, we need capital. We need to scale, to get it done. So we're not gonna get it done through NGOs.
James Russell, I have no idea.
Project.
Now, when you add the for-profit model, do you add it under or these are essentially two separate companies that work together?
So it's separate companies, so like we're the majority owner of our LLC, and that way we keep control.
Okay. Yeah, so you retain separate companies, but as a majority of those are pulling profits from
And, you know, the investors, they have this is the whole thing, like, they don't have, there's no exit. So we had to convince them that there's profit in it, and basically they have a preference, and, they have a mandatory right to get, you know, like, you know, half the cash flow goes to return. And then they get their capital back, and then they get 6% return, and then they share it with us. And that's what half the cash flow is, the other half is.
I'm not interested in selling. I'll look at your IRA and decide to make that right.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm Jason. You're from Delaware? All right, we're going there next week. So we have a document automation platform for like small law firms to that streamlines and automates the incorporation process, right? So our Delaware Online did an article about us. We were there like a few weeks ago with the governor. But I wanted to, we love B Corps, we want to do a lot.
Wait, did you have an technically? Did you have an article?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll find out my email.
Yeah, and then we had one in Delaware Online too. I can email it to you.
Okay.
So we're going there next week. We have investment from Vance Kirshner. He has labware.
Oh, labware.
Yeah. So
I want labware to be a B Corp.
Really? Well, I can help.
Tell them about it. Just mention it to them.
Okay. So we're there's a lot of stuff we want to do with B Corps in the future. We can't yet because of bandwidth issues. Since we're still a mediocrely funded startup, right? We're going there next week to like finish raising money, but I really talked to you about it. See like how we can maybe. So we're going to be giving this software to law firms to incorporate into their clients, right? And if we can incorporate B Corps into that in some capacity to make it easier.
Yeah, it should, I mean,
Do you want a demo?
famous last word.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, I'd love to show you a demo.
Yeah, I think I have a little time. Can I bring a sandwich with me?
Yeah. No, I can do it right here. I like prepared it ahead of time for you.
Oh, yeah, great. I'd love to see it.
So basically,
Oh, I lost my sandwich opportunity.
They probably should have it in the kitchen.
yeah, go for it. I'll
That'd
I'm
be
gonna- I'll
plenty
be right
left.
back.
I'll see you next week.
Did Kim make it?
No, I didn't do it.
What kind of work do you do?
Oh, we are a vertical farming company. So we use LED lights and we grow indoors and upwards.
You do a business card?
I don't have one on me, but I can give you my information. What about you?
I'm an author.
Oh, amazing.
I can read.
What do you write
You
about?
can read?
It's over.
Put this is the smallest world.
We got something going
You
on.
guys were destined to be
There you
amazing.
go.
You don't meet too many people.
It's a little book I wrote for my family, and it's being adopted by police departments now.
Wow,
Something I
that's
wish
very
we had
cool.
seen.
Isn't it great? They like you can
Chelsea,
make it
nice to meet you.
it just fits into a whole other like
Another genre that you would.
yeah that you would never have thought.
That's her.
I love this.
I
This
let
is great.
the police department put their logo on the front, the chief writes the foreword,
Uh-huh.
they use it in youth outreach programs, you give them, hey.
Very cool. That's amazing. I love this. These are my favorite kinds of books.
So here.
I need one of those. How can I get one of those?
If you'll give me your information on a napkin, which is my favorite way to get
I
information.
can do that.
I like that.
Just like a bar, hey,
Yeah.
sweetie, you know.
Where's your guys' vertical farm at?
We actually are looking for space over on the east side right
Oh,
now.
sweet.
So we sell our lights, we've developed a light that
okay.
we're selling to other farms right now.
Yeah.
We have our lights in farms
Cool.
all over, but yeah, we're looking on the east side, because that seems to be the best place
Well,
to
that's-
start doing
I
it.
know that's definitely the least expensive option.
Well, and we want the option of, getting more involved in the community and providing food
Oh, yeah.
locally to an area that,
Yeah.
you know, as you start to get further out, their food deserts don't have access to a lot of vegetables
Yeah.
and healthier food options. So,
It's not owned by the city, but
what about you guys? What work do you guys do?
Well, we're trying to help him help more people create corporations specifically, but B Corps as a nice side benefit as well.
That's great.
I'm actually going to give him a demo.
Hope you can read that.
Here, let me make sure I hear before we go.
I'm originally a Delawarean and
Oh.
used to work at Young Conway.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm meeting there next week.
Do you really? Yeah, and Randy Herndon, I feel like everyone knows Randy, was my
I'll send
mock
you an
trial
email.
advisor in high school,
Perfect.
so.
And here's my.
Wow.
I'm always thrilled to run into
So
Delaware.
you like
It's
actually
elsewhere.
grew up in Delaware?
I did, yeah.
Oh, where'd you go to high school?
Wilmington Christian,
Ah.
yeah.
If you don't hear from me, it means I've lost your name.
You know Jim Lennon?
Perfect.
Yeah, that's,
Love it.
that's who we're meeting with the young
Nice to
Conway
meet you,
next week.
Brittany.
I know,
Yeah.
Spread them around.
I love it. You're my new best friend.
Best friends. Best friends.
it's somebody, he's
Yeah.
in bankruptcy.
Cool. Okay, so this is basically how it's gonna work, right?
All right.
So I'm your lawyer, right? And you're my client. You come to me and you say, "Hey, JC,
Right?
I need to open up. I'm gonna quit this whole B Corp nonsense and I'm gonna open up a sandwich shop, right? So I need you to help me spin up a new entity, right? So say, hey, you know that's Al or Rick. Sorry, you go by Rick, right? Rick, that's great. We actually just started using this new software to help people incorporate to make it really easy. So I'm gonna send this to your cell phone if you don't mind. Do you mind? No, okay. So I'm actually gonna send you a link and just fill it out, really simple. And just. Right. So, should've just got it. So this is actually, yeah, that's like, so you would download it, it's automatically white label branded the name of the firm. This is MWR Legal, it's a local firm here in town that we pitch for. You go through, you don't have to actually go through the whole process. Go through, fill out all the basic information that you would for a normal state form. Do you mind if I use your, no? Okay. Cool. So, you would have gone through and you would have filled that out and submitted it. Oop, I went to the wrong one. Is there nothing on the screen?
I didn't,
Connect to the internet?
yeah, go ahead, I didn't,
Oh.
I didn't hook up the wireless.
Oh, I can do it. I've been here before. Capital Factory, connect. Oh, what is the key? I forget.
The factory.
It is?
Right, the factory, I think. Is that the guest?
I think it might have been. Looked like it might have worked. So you're in town from Delaware right now?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. What, do you live in Wilmington?
In Wilmington.
Nice, yeah, we're, here, I was on the guest. So, we're actually opening up an office there.
Yep,
Yeah.
you should come by and see me.
I will, I will. We can meet next week too, I don't mind at all. Looks like it's working. So, works on, okay. Got it. Use my email. This is how they get everyone's email addresses. It is. Okay.
Yeah, I done somehow.
Council. Okay. So this was basically what the back end dashboard's gonna look like for the attorneys.
Was this for attorneys only, or for?
It's for small law firms to start. We're going after like the 1 to 19 person firms to help them compete against the LegalZoom and basically save them time. Was it ACIT? Okay. No. Okay. So this would basically be their after you would have filled that out, it would go right into the dashboard and let's see. Oh, finance. So the team's actually working on this as we speak, so if something breaks or doesn't work, that's why. So you can preview the filing, right? So the data, and we just have the Florida forms mapped right now already. The data that you would have put in there automatically maps to the state of Florida's forms, right?
Yep.
So it automates it. So, and we have an official partnership with CT. I don't know if I mentioned that. So CT is our official partner. So as soon as So basically, you come to me, you say, hey, I need to spin up a new corporation. Say, hey, we're using this new software, it's great, I'm gonna shoot you a link. Automatically white label branded to the name of my firm. Look, I mean, the design is gonna be awesome, it's not gonna be like that. Same with everything else, we just hired on a full-time designer. And, so it's completely, it's great, it's awesome. So then you would fill it out, submit it. As soon as you submit it, I as your lawyer could go into the back end, just review review your submission, make sure it's correct. As soon as that's done, submit it, it goes to CT for filing, it's filed. That's what we're launching on March 15th. But what we're actually doing is we're building an entire like app, mobile, tablet, and PC platform. So the way that's going to work is you go through the same process but through an application. If you have any questions about the type of entity, what state, all of those things, I can actually show you this. I think it might have actually gone down. We built in messaging as well. Okay, good, it works. So basically, I would give you this. You would download it. It would automatically white label to the name of the firm. In this case, it was K&L Gates. It would not be co-branded like it is here.
Mhm.
You'd create an account, go through, fill out what state. You know, I have Delaware, right? I want a corporation. And then if I have any questions about what type of entity I want to create, what state, the tax ramifications, all those things, just go to your lawyer, chat them. You can provide links, upload documents, all those things. Along this whole time, you have real-time progress reporting, so you can see, oh, the lawyer's reviewed it, he's approved it, it's at CT for filing. As soon as it's filed, CT, it automatically gets uploaded, all your corporate documents, to a secure document repository in the cloud for you to access anyone related to the company to access at any time at the touch of a button should they ever need. So when they go to the bank and the banker says, oh, I need your EIN number, instead of having to text a lawyer, call the lawyer, fill out, fumble through their email, bring in a file folder, they can just go to the law firm's app, hit it, they got it, right? It's right there. Same with operating agreements, bylaws, state, all those things, right? So then it'll be time-stamped as the operating agreements get updated. I know, because they change a lot. And if you have more than one entity, all the entities get organized per entity. So I know I talked to, Chris Puccini is?